G'day guys, welcome to Pumped On Properties October Australian Property Market Update. Now in today's update, like always, we're going to bring you the most important key performance indicators in the Australian property market so you can keep your finger on the pulse. Now getting straight into it today, when we look at the monthly capital growth rates, 4 of Australia's capital cities have increased in value, but for the first month in a long time, 4 of them have actually declined in value. Now the 4 markets that are still powering away at the moment are the old favourites of Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth. But when we look at the likes of Melbourne, Canberra, Hobart and Darwin, all 4 of these markets are down at the moment. Now if we look at the annual changes in capital growth rates across Australia's 8 capital cities, no surprises that Sydney, Brisbane, Perth and Adelaide are still kicking ass at the moment and increasing at very, very fast rates. The only major change from last month is now 2 of Australia's capital cities are declining in the last 12 months, which is Melbourne as well as Hobart. But at this stage, those declines are still extremely marginal, with Melbourne decreasing by 1% in the last 12 months and Hobart declining by 1.2%.
Now, over the last month, we have seen those vacancy rates increase just ever so slightly in the majority of the capital cities, but still every single capital city outside of Canberra has a vacancy rate of below 2%. And then when we look at the auction clearance rates, they have decreased just slightly over the last month, but this is no wonder. We have seen an increase in listings and we have had the school holidays in New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland and around the country as well, so people have maybe been taking a bit of a break.
Now when we look at consumer confidence over the last month, unfortunately it has come down slightly again, and this is probably off the back of the news that the Reserve Bank of Australia didn't reduce interest rates, and we're now 18 months into the cycle where rates have been high and that pressure has been consistently on the average Australian's household budget on a weekly basis. Now based on history, we should start to see that consumer confidence spike in the next 12 months as interest rates continue to come down around the world and hopefully in Australia, according to the RBA's website as we speak. In terms of unemployment rates, no changes over the last month, sitting at 4.1% at the moment, with one of the most important things that I read this month from CBA that was saying that the Reserve Bank of Australia has finally got that inflation rate within that 2 to 3% range that we've been working at for years now, which is a great sign of positive things to come.
Now, one of the biggest changes over the previous month was the lending rate skewing heavily in favour of investors at the moment. Now, just a few months ago, we saw the lending rates at about 70% owner occupiers to 30% investors, but we're seeing 38% of those home loans being drawn up for investors, with just 62% of home loans being drawn up for owner occupiers.
Now, when we take a look at interest rates, what's super exciting around the world is the United States, Canada, and New Zealand have all begun cutting interest rates, which is super exciting for Australia because historically we have lagged behind those markets, about 3 to 6 months behind.
We'll definitely be watching very closely to see what the RBA does in the coming meetings. But now to switch over and start looking at those listings, the total number of listings, the distressed listings. To start with total number of listings, they increased almost 8% over the previous month, which is quite normal at this time of the year. We are coming into spring selling season where historically we see a spike in listings around the country. And when we look at distressed listings, they have increased just slightly by 1% over the month, but still down 1.1% over the year when we look at a national level. But when you dive into each individual state, that is mostly being driven by Victoria, New South Wales, ACT, Tasmania, and the Northern Territory. Whereas over the last month, distressed listings in Queensland, WA, and Adelaide have all actually dropped.
Now, getting to my favorite part personally of our market updates each month, I wanted to go through this month's gold nugget. Now, when Simon and I were doing some digging over the last month on the Reserve Bank of Australia's website, as well as looking at what the major banks are predicting in terms of interest rates, we've seen for the first time the Reserve Bank coming out and on their website in a public notice basically saying that they expect interest rates to drop by at least 1% from their current levels by the end of 2025. Now, on top of this, the likes of the 4 major banks are all expecting interest rates to come down at the reserve level to about that 3.1 to that 3.5% mark, which is super exciting.
And I'm going to continue on this trend with some positive news for this month's property market update. And I think going on from that, the reason why we're starting to finally see this information come out from the RBA and the big banks is because the inflation data is starting to look quite favourable here in Australia. Now, over the last quarter, it was looking at about 2.9%, which is in that target range of 2 to 3%, and looks like it is trending downwards at the moment. So this should give the RBA and the bank's confidence to start passing on some of those interest rate reductions, which everybody could use a little less inflation and a little lower interest rate at the moment.
If you're thinking about buying an investment property in the next 3 to 6 months, then the team and I at Pumped on Property would love to offer you a one-on-one strategy session. To book the session, all you have to do is go to www.pumpedonproperty.com and click that free strategy session button. Now, in the session, we'll talk about exactly where you are right now, where you'd like to be longer term, and educate you deeply on the Australian property market. You can then take that information and go and absolutely smash it on your own, or potentially become one of the small number of clients that we work with each month. Either way, we look forward to continuing to help you build your property portfolio with confidence on your journey to financial freedom.